Hello everyone, I'm Arunima from Knit and Otter, and I am going to show you how to make the Maya Hexagon cardigan. This is a cardigan pattern that is made in Tunisian crochet, and it is made with two hexagons mainly. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the pattern, give you an introduction to the pattern, and then jump into the tutorial. So if you are here just for the tutorial, you're welcome to jump ahead in the video. So a little bit about the pattern. This is a hexagon cardigan, and the inspiration came from granny stitch hexagon cardigans. I had always had this on my mind. I wanted to give it a try. But when I made my hexagons for the IPSA blanket, that is when I really had to, I just had to try it. And I'm so glad I did because I love how it turned out. And this is a intermediate level pattern, mainly because a large part of it is worked in the round. If you are aware of if you already know how to work in the round, then this should be pretty straightforward to make. What you'll need for making this cardigan is yarn. I used Brava worsted weight yarn by Knit Picks in colors, in 5 different colors, all of which are listed in the pattern, which you're welcome to check out. But I wanted to mention that this cardigan would look good with any combination of colors. I just recommend that you pick two contrasting colors for the forward and return pass. So this design, the black that you see is from the return pass, so that stands out. But it really is your choice. Any worsted weight yarn will work. And this pattern comes in sizes from XS all the way to 5X, all of which the entire pattern is available for free on my blog. And you can also purchase a PDF from one of my shops, but all the sizes are available on my blog. To make this cardigan, you will also need a double-ended hook, which is something like this. I made a double-ended hook with 2 interchangeable needles joined by a cord, and you don't this cord could be of any length. It could be shorter or longer, and it would not matter. You could even use a fixed hook where both ends have a hook, and that would also work out fine. So as long as you have 2 hooks on each end, that's all we're looking for. For this pattern, I used a 8 millimeters hook for my forward pass and a 6.5 millimeters hook for my return pass. Aside from this, you'd need stitch markers, which I strongly recommend using if you're making a project in the round for the first time. Even though I've worked on a lot of projects in the round, I still use stitch markers and I find them very, very useful. So for this pattern, I'd recommend having 6 stitch markers, 5 of the same color and 1 of a different color. And I've explained why further in the tutorial, so you'd know exactly why I recommend having the stitch markers that way. And aside from that, you just need scissors and a tapestry needle to weave in your ends. So the way this cardigan is constructed is that you make 2 hexagons and then you continue to make the sleeves, and then you join the 2 hexagons and you make a collar or a border, and then you add a bottom extension. So that's pretty much it. So this video could be used as sort of a guide to make a hexagon cardigan in Tunisian crochet. You could replace the cardigan design, you could replace the design in the hexagons, or you could increase or decrease the size based on whatever you want it to be. So if you wanted to play around with the pattern, this is a great pattern to modify. And in the tutorial, I explain how to make the individual sections one by one. I don't follow the pattern, a size from the pattern exactly, but this is the size that I made, which is really, really tiny. But I am able to explain the entire construction using this small size. So just wanted to put it out there that if you wanted to make a size that is different than what's listed in the pattern, you should be able to use this tutorial and make it. That's pretty much it about the pattern. And let's jump right into the tutorial. If you make a cardigan using my pattern or my video, please share a picture with me. I'm always excited to see what everybody is making using my pattern. So you are welcome to either email me or share your pictures in my Facebook group. Either way is fine. I would love to see what you're making. So let's get started with the cardigan. This is step one of making the Maya cardigan. You start with making a hexagon, and the first round of of the hexagon is made in a magic ring. And just gonna start with this, and that's the first stitch. You're supposed to make 6 stitches in the magic ring, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I'm going to go ahead and start the return pass. I'm going to move over to the other hook, and I'm using a long cord just for the purpose of this tutorial. You do not need a long cord. Uh, it's just easier to film a tutorial with a long cord. So you can start with a shorter cord in between your hooks or a fixed size hook. And here is my return pass yarn. I start with a slip knot and I pull through 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 until I have 2 loops on the hook. That's where I always stop. And then I'm going to turn this around and go back to my forward pass hook. And at this point, I like to close my magic loop or magic ring. So here, and this is the first stitch of the magic ring, and that's round 1. So this completes round 1. I'm going to begin round 2 now, which is a knit stitch and a full stitch. So a knit stitch, so going in between these 2 bars, knit stitch and a full stitch. So going in between the two stitches of the previous round. So that's a knit stitch and a full stitch, and I'm going to mark the beginning of this round with a stitch marker. So a knit stitch, full stitch, and then another knit stitch. I'm going to use another stitch marker. That's the beginning of this second repeat, and a full stitch. So that's 2 repeats. Knit stitch, full stitch, knit stitch, full stitch. I'm going to go ahead and make the return pass now. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 until I have 2 of the forward pass loops on the hook, and then turn it around and continue making knit and full stitches. There's 4 more repeats to go, so that's 1, 2, then the third one is a knit stitch and a full stitch, and I'm going to put a stitch marker in the beginning of each repeat. Knit stitch, full stitch. I'm going to go ahead and make the return pass. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 here, and then go back to the forward pass hook. And knit, full, and then a knit, and a full stitch here. So we know that we've ended at the right spot because it's right before the beginning of the round. So we've we've made our stitches correctly. We've not missed any stitches. We've not added any stitches. So this is how you should end the last. This is where you should end that last stitch of round 2. And that is why these stitch markers are very, very helpful. So if you have these stitch markers, it helps you understand where you are in the pattern on every round, and having a different color marker for the beginning of the round will help you figure out the beginning of the round. So you do not, so if this were the same color, I wouldn't know if this was any different than this. It's really helpful to have a different color stitch marker for the beginning of the round. So I'm going to go ahead and make the return pass. Coming back to the forward pass hook. So this is how it's looking. This is how it's supposed to look at the end of round 2. Now on to round 3. For round 3, it's 2 knit stitches and a full stitch. I've done a total of 6 times. So here, a knit stitch, and that's going to be the beginning of the round. Another knit stitch, and then a full stitch. The second repeat is a knit stitch, another knit stitch, and then a full stitch. I've completed 2 repeats of round 3. I'm going to go ahead and cast off some stitches. The third repeat, it's a knit stitch, a knit stitch, and a full stitch. Knit stitch, knit stitch, and a full stitch, and return pass. Forward pass again. Now repeats 5 and 6. A knit stitch, a knit stitch, and a full stitch. And the last repeat, a knit stitch, knit stitch, and a full stitch. So that's all of the round 3 stitches, and I'm going to complete this by making the return pass. This is how it's looking at the end of round 3. Now on to round 4. This is the round where the tricky twisted stitches start, but if you haven't practiced your twisted stitches, I recommend practicing them separately so that you understand how to make them before you work on your hexagon. That's important because it can get frustrating to learn multiple things at once, and the part that we're doing right now is the hardest part. The setup rounds of a hexagon are the hardest, so if you know how to make your twisted stitches already, that'll be very, very helpful. So round 4 starts with a twisted simple stitch. So you pick up the stitch in the opposite direction and twist up, yarn over, pull through, and then a twisted knit stitch in the same stitch. So that's the stitch is already twisted at this point. So just insert the hook between the front and back vertical bars. So that's a twisted simple stitch and a twisted knit stitch in the same stitch. And that's the beginning of the round. And then a knit stitch, and then a knit and simple stitch in the next stitch. So, and then a knit stitch, which is in between these two bars, and a simple stitch in that same stitch. So the front vertical bar of the same stitch. And that is what makes one edge of the hexagon. I'm going to repeat this a second time. So a twisted simple stitch, twisted upwards, a twisted knit stitch, a knit and simple stitch in the same stitch, a knit and simple in the same stitch. So that completes 2 repeats. Going back to the forward pass hook, the third repeat, which is a twisted simple stitch, a twisted knit stitch in the same stitch, a knit stitch, and then a knit and simple in the same stitch. And the fourth repeat, so twisted simple, a twisted knit, knit, and knit and simple in the same stitch. So those are repeats 3 and 4. Now casting off. Going back to the forward pass. This is repeat number 5, a twisted simple stitch, a twisted knit stitch, a knit stitch, and then a knit and simple in the same stitch. And the last repeat, which is again a twisted simple stitch, a twisted knit stitch, and then a knit stitch, and then a knit and simple in the same stitch. Return pass. So here is how it looks at the end of round 4. So this is when we've started making our corner stitches, and these are the first 4 setup rounds. Now on to the 5th round. So the 5th round is a twisted simple stitch and a twisted knit stitch in the same spot. and then 3 knit stitches. So 1, 2, and 3, and then a knit stitch and a simple stitch in the same spot. So that's how it is, and we have to repeat this a total of 6 times. So this is 1, and then I'm going to do 6 more times and show you how it looks at the end of round 5. This is how it looks at the end of round 5. You can see that we have a hexagon shape forming at this point, and you can see that we have these little V's forming at the corners, so you can identify the corners even if you don't have the stitch markers. You're welcome to keep the stitch markers if you like and keep moving them up as you make new rows, new rounds, but I am going to remove these stitch markers, the purple ones, for the following rounds because I can identify the corner stitches even without the markers, but you're welcome to keep them. In fact, it's a good idea to keep them if you're making this for the first time, because it really helps you keep track of the first stitch of every edge or every repeat. But if you're comfortable with it, you're welcome to remove these. I am still going to keep this one, and because it tells me the beginning of the round, and it's easy. It makes it easy for me to know when to stop. I sometimes forget how many repeats I've made, so this is a very helpful marker. I'm going to remove the rest of them, but I'm going to keep that one. So on to round 6. I'm going to follow the instructions for the smallest size in the pattern. So I'm going to make round 6, which is the size excess is it's twisted simple stitch, and twisted knit stitch in the same spot, and then reverse stitch. So you pick up the back vertical bar, reverse stitch, knit stitch, reverse stitch, knit stitch, and another reverse stitch, and then a knit stitch and simple stitch to end that repeat. So that's one edge of the hexagon for round 6. I'm going to go ahead and make all 6 rounds and show you how it looks at the end. Here we are at the end of round 6. So there is this one round where we had alternating knit and reverse stitches, and I've gotten rid of all the other stitch markers. I don't need them anymore, and you can see that this is ruffling a little bit. This doesn't sit straight, and that's what we want. We don't want this hexagon to sit straight because it's only then we'll be able to fold it and make the L shape that we want towards the end, and you will see that in the pattern later. But just know that if your hexagon isn't sitting straight at this point, that's expected. I'm following the instructions for the size XS, so that's what this is. But if you're making a different size, the instructions might be different. But it works up just the same. You make one repeat, which is one edge of the hexagon, and just make it a total of 6 times, which completes the entire round. So here I am, twisted simple stitch, twisted knit stitch, and then alternating reverse and knit stitches. So reverse, knit, reverse, knit, reverse, knit, reverse, and a knit and simple stitch in the same stitch. So that's how it is, and I'm going to go ahead and complete the entire round and show you how it looks. Here we are at the end of round 7, and you see this ruffling. This will increase as this grows larger. So just giving you a heads up that this will not lay flat. It will become more and more ruffled, and that's expected. So we will continue making rounds like this all the way until round 14, and that will be the gauge swatch. You can follow the instructions of the size that you are making and make this swatch all the way until round 14. and then check the gauge at that point. I'm going to go ahead and complete making 14 rounds of the size XS and show you how it looks. This is how it looks at the end of round 14. This is starting to ruffle quite a bit, and that's expected. This is how it should be. If it is not ruffling, then you need to pause and look at what mistake you've made, because it is supposed to ruffle. If it is not ruffling, then there is a mistake and you need to fix it. So this is how it is. And after the end of round 14, we're going to measure gauge. So just going to pick up any one edge. I'm going to put a stitch marker here just to save these stitches. And that's the stitch marker that I had for the beginning of the round. So I'm going to pick just a random edge. I'm going to pick this edge here. I'm going to stretch it out a tiny bit to make sure it sits straight now, because it was ruffling. So I just want to make sure it's nice and flat. And then I'm going to take my measuring tape, and I'm going to measure from one corner, which is here, all the way here, to this other corner, which from here to here. So that's 7 inches, and which is about 8 centimeters. So 7 inches is what your edge should measure at this point. If your gauge is, if your swatch is smaller, you'll have a smaller cardigan. If you have your gauge, if your swatch is bigger, then you'll have a bigger cardigan. So at this point, you'd have to adjust based on what your gauge swatch is like, if it is smaller or larger. And I also might want to look at the drape, how drapey it is. This is nice and squishy, so I like how it is. So that's where you need to measure gauge. And now, if if you meet gauge, you just continue working on your size. Follow the instructions until you reach the end of one hexagon, and then make another one. So I have two here. I made another one. So these two are identical. And you'll see some curling on the side, which is normal because we're working with knit stitches. This will not be a problem towards the end, because we're going to join these and we'll be working the other sections on top of these. But you'll have two hexagons, and I am going to stop here. And I'm for this tutorial, I'm not going to um, make this hexagon any larger, but I'm going to show you how to continue to step 2, which is making the sleeves. Let's get on with that. So I'm going to put these loops back onto my hook, remove the stitch marker, and at the end of your hexagon, you will not cut the yarn. We're going to continue working on the sleeves directly. So I'm going to follow the instructions for step 2, which is making a row, making knit stitches along one edge. So I'm going to make knit stitches along one edge. So here, I'm going to remove this as well now. I don't need it anymore. So knit, knit, So I've knit along an entire edge all the way up to the corner stitch right here. And there are stitch counts for every size in the pattern, so you don't have to worry about how many to make. For this sample swatch, I'm just going to show you how to do it. So we just end up so we just make a row of knit stitches along one edge without the twisted stitches, without the increases. So here, if you can see this V's, the V's that are at the corner. So I'm including this stitch here. into this edge, and here is the V on this side, and this stitch here in that corner. So that's a row of knit stitches, and I'm going to cast off now. Going to my reverse pass hook and casting off until I have a total of 3 loops on the hook. And then turning around and going back to the forward pass hook. So at this point, I've made stitches, knit stitches along one edge. And the instructions for rounds 2 to 5 say that you fold the edge that you worked on and you continue working on in a round along the same edge. So what that means is that this is the edge we just worked on. You fold this edge. So it was like this. This was the edge we worked on. You fold it. And then you continue working on stitches on the same edge. You work in a round, stitches on this at the same edge. So this was the first stitch of this round that we just started making. So I'm going to continue working here, and I'm going to make knit stitches. So make sure that my working yarn is behind and not in between these, and then insert my hook here into this first stitch here, make a knit stitch. Now I just have to make sure that this is not loose, and just keep it a bit tight for now, and then make knit stitches. And I'm going to put a stitch marker here because that is the first stitch of this round, and I'm going to keep going making knit stitches because that's what the instructions call for. So there'll be 3 rounds of knit stitches, just working in a round along one edge, and that's where we're making the armhole. So here I've added a few loops on the hook, and I couldn't work anymore, so I stopped, and I'm going to cast off some loops. And here it's the casting off is the same: yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and just make sure that you are casting off in the right order because these loops can overlap, and that's something we cannot fix while we're working the forward pass. So just make sure that you don't make that mistake. Okay, so I'm going to continue making knit stitches until I reach the stitch before the stitch marker. And this is the stitch right before the stitch marker here. So I am going to now cast off. This will be the end of round 2. This is the end of round 2 of the sleeves, and this is how it's looking. This is where we joined, and this will look a lot better once I make a couple more rounds. So I'm going to make 2 more rounds and show you how it looks. Just continue working on these stitches from the previous round. And then make knit stitches all around. This is how it looks at the end of round 3, and you can see that this is nicely connected over here now. We'll just continue working in a round from here, and this will become the sleeve. So that was round 3, 2 more rounds of knit stitches. And I'm going to make these 2 rounds and show you how it looks. Here we are at the end of round 5, and this is how it's looking. So you can now see that since I folded this and started working around the edge, this is automatically folded this way, and this forms 1/2 of the cardigan. This will be one side, and you will continue to make the sleeve on this side here. And I'm not going to make the entire thing on camera. You can follow the instructions from the pattern, and just I'm going to make this off camera and show you how it looks. So I'm going to continue making the sleeve. I'll make a little bit of it and then I'll show you how it looks. Here is how it's looking after making a few more rounds of the sleeve. For this swatch, I'm at a point where I'm ready to start decreasing and make the cuff. So I just wanted to show you how to make a TRS decrease, which is slightly, I don't think I have a video tutorial for that, so I thought I'd include it here. Um, so while making the cuff, what we do is that we're going to decrease from here on, or wherever you are in the pattern for you. So follow the instructions from the pattern. I'm going to show you how to make the TRS decrease, which is you insert your hook in the back vertical bar of the next 2 stitches. So that is the back vertical bar of the next one and the next one. So those two, and then you yarn over and you pull through both. That is what makes a reverse stitch decrease. And that's something that's used in the pattern. So I just wanted to show you how to do that. I'll make a round of the sleeve with the decreases and show you how it works up. Here you can see how the sleeve has started to taper, and we can start to see that the size of this is decreasing. So there are 2 more rounds of decreases before we bind off this part. And the thing that I'd like you to keep an eye on is that during testing, my testers found that some of my testers found that this was too small for them, this the circumference here. So if it seems like it's going to be too small, stop decreasing. You can modify the pattern a little bit in that you don't need to decrease as much as what the pattern says. You can stop when you think that the size is comfortable for you, and then just make the last few rounds, which are just knit and reverse stitches. So you don't do any decreases in those rounds, but the decrease rounds can be altered. Like you can choose how many decreases you want. It's just to make sure that the sleeve, you're able to pull the sleeve onto your arm and that it doesn't get stuck on your hands. So that's something to be aware of. And I'm going to now, I'm going to bind off and show you how to complete the sleeve. So to start binding off, I'm going to complete this round by casting off all the forward pass stitches. So here. And all my forward pass stitches are off. And at this point, I can either choose to bind off with this color, or the return pass color, or the forward pass color, whichever you choose is fine. I'm just going to continue with this. I'm going to do a alternating knit and reverse stitch bind off. So here in knit stitch and slip, and then a reverse stitch, slip, knit stitch, and here I am at the end of this round. I'm going to cut the yarn here. I'm going to pull it through. Now I'm going to join this with here with a invisible join. So thread the needle, and here this is the first slip stitch of this round. So I'm going to insert my needle from back to front under the two bars, and then back into the same spot where this yarn is coming out from. I'm sorry, I picked the darker yarn to do this, but just go in here, the same spot where it's coming out from, and weave in this end. So that's how it will be bound off. And at this point, you can cut the yarn and weave in ends. And this is how the one half of your cardigan will look. And I'm going to do this for the other hexagon as well. I'm going to make the sleeve for this, and then I'll have both the sides, and I'm going to show you how to continue to step 3, which will be seaming the shoulder and the back. This is how the two sides of the cardigan look. They're the two hexagons and the sleeves with them. And we're going to now put them together. But before we do that, I wanted to point out one thing. During testing, some of my testers thought that the sleeves were too short for them. So if you wanted to make your sleeves longer, which you would be able to identify after you join, actually, once you join this and then you are you'd be able to wear the cardigan, put it on yourself and see how it's feeling. If you feel like the sleeves are too short, then you can undo the part where the decreases were, increase the sleeve length by adding a few more rounds, and then go ahead and complete your sleeve. So you can do that on both sides. That is only if you feel like the sleeves are short. If they're all right, then that's great. But if not, then there's that option of undoing just a little bit and adding a few rounds before you go ahead and complete the sleeve. So just letting you know that that's a possibility. So at this point, we are now done with actually the heavy lifting is done. Most of this cardigan is already made. Well, a bulk of it is made. We have the joining to go, and then we'll make a border, and then we're going to add the back extension. So I'm going to now start with showing you how to seam these two pieces together. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick any two edges that are opposite of this. So these are the sleeves, and these are the edges opposite to the sleeves, or you could pick the ones in the back right now. So there's no front and back to this at this point. This side and this side is exactly the same. So you could pick any two edges. So I'm going to pick these edges and I'm going to start joining them. This is going to be the back of my cardigan. So for this, I'm going to move this sideways and I'm going to align these stitches together. And I'm going to graft these stitches like they were knit stitches. And I have a separate tutorial where I explain this in a lot more detail. So if you wanted to see what the process is like exactly to understand it in detail, I have a separate video which I'm going to provide a link for. But in this video, I'll show you how to do it, but I'm not going to do a lot of detail. So we begin with picking the yarn that we want to make the join with. For me, I'm using the yarn which I made the forward pass with. So this was my forward pass yarn color. And the reason I'm doing that is so that when I join, this return pass yarn will be hidden in the back and this will become a seamless join. And you need to have about the length of the yarn needs to be about twice the length of this edge, so that you're able to graft a little more than twice, so that you're able to do the entire thing in one go. If you run out, that's completely fine. You can just attach a new strand, but that's what I would start with. So to begin, I'm going to pick up this hexagon, and I'm going to isolate that corner stitch so of this edge. So the first stitch of this edge is this one right here. You see these V's, and this part of the V is this edge, and this part of the V is this edge. So this is a part of this edge. So I'm going to now pick up this back vertical bar, insert my needle, and pull the yarn through. And now I'm going to pick up the other hexagon, and I'm going to find that corner stitch, which is right here. And I'm going to insert my needle in between and pick up this back vertical bar and the front vertical bar of the next stitch. And then I'm going to insert my hook back here, the same stitch as earlier, pick up the front vertical bar and then the back vertical bar of the next stitch. Now when this comes to a close, just make sure that you don't pull it too tight. Just trying to mimic the stitches, the length of the stitches I'm just trying to mimic the height of the stitches that are already there. So just keeping this one about the same height as the other stitches. So now again here, going into the back vertical bar and then the front vertical bar of the next. And here front, back, back, front, front, back. I'm going to continue doing this until I reach the other corner. This is how it's looking. You can see that it's hard to figure out where the stitches are joined. This is a seamless join where you cannot figure out where the seam is, and when you wear your cardigan, you won't be able to figure out where you've joined. So I absolutely love how this works, and I was so excited to share it with all of you when I designed this cardigan and I figured this out. I was super excited with how it worked out. So hopefully this will be just as exciting for you, but I'm getting close to the end here. I wanted to show what I do. So here I'm on this stitch, continuing with my grafting, and I am at the corner stitch here, or the last stitch of that row here, this one, and then here, and here I'm just going to, at this point I'm just going to go in and secure this. So this is how the back looks now. So this would be the back of the cardigan here, and you can weave this end in. And similarly, we're going to graft the shoulder seam. So this is, you've got right next to the sleeve, there is this part. You can start joining those, and you can see here there's this corner stitch here, and there be a similar corner stitch here on this side. So just start grafting them together, and this is the part where you'd not do the join all the way to the center. You'd stop 7 stitches before the end. So about 2 inches, you'd leave about 2 inches, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you'd leave these 7 stitches and you'd graft the rest of them, you'd join the rest of them. That is so that we have enough stitches to be able to make that collar right here. So we need that space. So on both sides, you join from the sleeve all the way until 7 stitches before, or leave 7 stitches and then the eighth stitch, uh, so that you have that space to make the collar. So I'm going to go ahead and complete grafting the shoulders and show you how it looks. This is how it looks after seaming the shoulders. Left 7 stitches here and 7 stitches on this side at the neck, and here this is the back, which I'm going to flip and show you. This is how it is, nice and neat. And now we're going to work on step 4, which is the border. So for the border, we're going to pick this hexagon, turn this. The first round in this step is to pick up stitches around the entire cardigan here. So we're going to start with this corner here. So the instructions start with a twisted simple stitch, a twisted simple stitch, and a twisted knit stitch in the same stitch. And then knit stitches across the front edge. So I have mentioned these stitch counts in the pattern document, so you can refer to the pattern document to figure out how many stitches that is, but it's what we're actually doing is we're making knit stitches along that edge. So knit stitches all the way till we get to the other corner. Here I am at this other corner, and I'm going to make a knit stitch in that as well. We are not going to do an increase. So knit stitches all the way till that edge, and then 7 knit stitches in the 7 stitches that we had left open at the shoulder. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I think while I was weaving in the end, I ended up making this a little tight, but it's right here. So 7, and then 1 knit stitch in the seam. So here, this is the seam. So 1 knit stitch in this last knit stitch of that seam, and then knit stitch 7 knit stitches in the back part of this shoulder. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is the 7th one. This is the corner stitch. So 7. If you're using a short cord for or a double-ended hook, a fixed double-ended hook, you might want to start casting off stitches at this point. I'm going to continue for a bit more and add some more stitches. So now here is the back seam. This one is here. This one is the back seam. So I'm going to add 1 stitch here. It doesn't matter where you go, just if you can find that space, yarn over, pull through, and then 7 stitches in the other hexagons, the back at where the shoulder is. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then 1 stitch in that seam. Here again, I think I closed this too tight, so pull it a little bit. And then 7 stitches in the front of this other hexagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then knit stitches along this other edge. So I'm not counting, but please use the instructions that are in the pattern document so that you will know exactly how many stitches to make. So here, and here at this corner, I'm going to make a knit stitch and simple stitch in the same stitch. So at this point, I'm going to pause and cast off some stitches, but let me show you what I have. So here I'm placing this cardigan like this. So we went from here, we started picking stitches here, we went around the neck and then picked up stitches all the way till here. And the reason we have the twisted stitches in these two parts here is because now we're going to go around this part as well, and we need that corner over there. So that's why those twisted stitches are there. But along this entire section here, there were no increases. We just picked up stitches so that we have that foundation row so we can complete making the border. So I'm going to cast off by using my return pass yarn now. Okay, now I've cast off all but 2 stitches, and this is how it's looking. So this foundation row for the border is done. At least the front part is done. Now we still have to work this part here. So I'm going to continue with the instructions for row 1, and now going to make a twisted. So this is the bottom. I'm going to make a twisted simple stitch, twisted knit stitch, and then going to make knit stitches all the way until I reach that back seam. Here I am at, this is the last stitch of that edge, and then here is that bottom seam, here is that back seam. So I'm going to make 1 stitch here and then knit stitches across the bottom edge of that other hexagon. And we stop before this corner stitch, and there's I'm going to make a knit stitch and a simple stitch in the same stitch. So here is the entire bottom of the cardigan, and I'm going to cast off now. I'm going to go back to the forward pass hook, and this is how it is looking. So we went we started here, picked up stitches along this edge, along the neck, around, and then along this edge, and then all around the bottom from here all the way till here. And now we're going to continue working on top of this first round that we just created, and I'm going to make another round and show you how that works up, but it's pretty straightforward after this. I think this was the trickiest bit, to figure out where to pick up stitches from. So I'm going to start making another round, and I will show you how it looks after I complete that second round. So here I am with my forward pass hook, and here's the forward pass yarn. So this is that first stitch here. So I'm going to make a twisted simple stitch and twisted knit stitch in the same stitch. And then I'm going to make knit stitches all around until we reach this corner. So I've picked up stitches all along the front, and now this is going to be that corner where the front bottom. And so I'm going to insert my hook and make a knit stitch and a simple stitch in the same stitch. This is where I pause, and I'll show you again. So I've made knit stitches all along the front, which is here, through the neck, and here. So I am not following the pattern now because this is not a size in the pattern. I just wanted to show you how you work this part, the steps. So just please be sure to follow the pattern for the instructions for the size that you are making. I'm going to now continue making the return pass. And now I have 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to turn around and continue. So I'm at this bottom part now. So I'm going to make a twisted simple stitch, twisted knit stitch, and then knit stitches until I reach the other corner. Here I am at the other corner, so I'm going to make a knit and simple stitch in the same stitch. So now casting off. Here I have 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to turn this around again, and I'm going to show you how it's looking. This is curling quite a bit right now, and that's expected because of the knit stitches. But if you follow the pattern, you should eventually have a border which doesn't curl as much. But if you see here, these knit stitches are just continuing on both sides, and there is a combination of reverse and knit stitches at some point in the border, so it gives it that same effect that's here. So please follow the pattern and continue to make as many rounds as are needed for your size. And I'm assuming that I have at this point made all the rounds that I need for the border. I'm going to now show you how to bind off. Once I've made all the rounds that I need for the border, I'm going to follow the binding off instructions for this part, which are a twisted simple stitch. Oh, I'm actually going to first cast off these remaining stitches as well. And here. And now I'm going to bind off. I'm going to use the return pass color to bind off, but you can choose whichever color you want. If you wanted to bind off with the front pass color, you'd cut this yarn and just continue with the other one. So the instructions for the binding off round start with a twisted simple stitch, and then you slip and a reverse stitch, slip. I don't actually need the cord for this part because I'm binding off. So knit, slip, reverse, slip, knit, slip, reverse, slip. And we're going to do this all along this border here until we reach this corner right here. Knit, reverse. So all the way until this stitch here, and then a all the way until this stitch here, and then a simple stitch, slip. So that completes this front border all the way. Minus twisting, minus curling quite a bit because I only use knit stitches. But in the instructions, there are a few rows of, there are a few rounds of knit and reverse stitches, so that should even out the tension. And I also had to steam my edges a bit to make them straight, but I think mine are still curling a bit, but I don't mind that. But if you do not like how it is, you might want to switch out the knit and reverse stitch is to only reverse stitches and add a few more rounds of just plain reverse stitches. That will help it sit a lot more flat than when you're using the combination or just knit stitches. So there are a lot of things that you can alter here based on your preference, and you're welcome to make any changes that you need to. I'm just giving you the options here, just listing them out so that you know that it would not make any change to the overall pattern. You are welcome to add rounds of reverse stitches or even more rounds of the border if you prefer that. So at this point, I'm here now. This is where you would have to make a decision. You could complete your cardigan at this point. You could complete binding off the bottom as well, and that will be your completed cardigan. And if you wanted to do that, you would just continue following the instructions and bind off the rest of it as well. But if you wanted to make the bottom extension, so this is where you will start to make it. To make the bottom extension, which is step 5, you will work this part flat, so you do not need a double-ended hook. I'm using a hook with a cord only because I will work with a bunch of stitches in at once, and I should have a stopper here, otherwise my stitches will fall off. Okay. So this part, I'm going to work with this return pass color yarn. You can choose whichever color you like. It would not make a difference to the pattern. I'm just going to continue working with this. So a twisted simple stitch, and then alternating reverse and knit stitches. Reverse, knit, reverse, knit, and a reverse, and end it with a simple stitch in this corner stitch here. So now I'm going to make the return pass by just doing a chain 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2 until I reach the beginning of this row. So this will be worked in rows and not rounds. This is the only part of the cardigan which is worked flat and not in the round. And that completes row 1 of this section. This is how the bottom extension is looking after making that first row of this step, which is step 5. And since this is worked in rows, we're just going to continue following the instructions and continuing to make rows from here. I know this color is a little dark, so it'd be hard to see, but it's rows of knit stitches, rows 2 to 7. So just make knit stitches all the way to the end, and this is how you'd go. You'd keep the first loop on the hook, continue to make your stitches until you reach the end here, and then you'd make the last stitch in the last stitch there. So I'm going to make a couple of rows and show you how they look, and I will see you on the other side of this video. Here is how it looks after completing a couple of rows of knit stitches, and this is where there are a few rows of alternating knit and reverse stitches to end this cardigan, and it is curling quite a bit, and that's because of the knit stitches. Once you add the alternating knit and reverse stitches, this should straighten out. But if this is a problem, you could completely eliminate the rows of knit stitches and just make the ones with knit and reverse stitches alternating those stitches, or you could replace them with reverse stitches, whatever works for you. I made mine based on the instructions that are in the pattern, and they worked great for me. I did have to steam block a little bit, but that fixed the curling for me. But choose whatever works for you. It's okay if you do not want to make the knit stitches and replace them with any other stitch of your choice, or with the alternating knit and reverse stitches. So the last thing that we have to do here is bind off. So I'm going to go ahead and make a bind off. It's the same as the earlier bind off round that I showed you. It's just binding off with slip stitches. So make a reverse stitch, slip, a knit stitch, slip, reverse, slip, and I'm going to continue doing that until I reach the end. So this is how it is looking after I bound off. You can see that this is sitting quite flat, even though there was just one row of alternating knit and reverse stitches, which was the bind off row. So just reiterating that if this curls a lot for you, this could be fixed with blocking, but if it doesn't, you are welcome to add more rows of reverse stitches or knit and reverse, alternating knit and reverse stitches, and you can make it as long or as short as you want by adding or removing rows here. Just reminding you again that this is a smaller size than any of the sizes that are in the pattern. I just wanted to use this sample to show you all the important parts about the construction and how to make each section. This is probably the cutest cardigan that I've ever made. This is tiny, and I'll probably have to find a baby to gift it to. But this is all there is to make this cardigan. I really hope that you enjoy it, and please share some pictures with me. I can't wait to see how all of your cardigans will work up.